Ever since her first sighting in 1.0's story quest, Miyabi has been the most hyped character in ZZZ 0. Her kit has finally been revealed in the recent 1.4 livestream, so time for an early guide. First off, let's get into her kit. Miyabi is a crit scaling anomaly character who has an anomaly build-up rate gain based on her crit rate. This puts Miyabi in a pretty unique spot as the only anomaly unit whose primary source of damage comes from crit related stats. Miyabi also has her own unique anomaly, Frost, which shares Ice Anomaly's 10% crit damage bonus after triggering Shadow. However, where Frost differs from the Ice Anomaly is that only Miyabi can build it, but it also can trigger Disorder with Ice Anomaly, making her by far the most unique character we've gotten so far. Being our first Voidhunter, it comes at no surprise that Miyabi has a lot of power and unique mechanics in her kit. We'll have to keep an eye out for future Voidhunters to see whether they end up being our equivalent of Genshin's Archons. Her basic attack is a standard 5-hit combo with an additional charged attack when you hold the button down. This charged basic has 3 stages, and each stage consumes 1 of her Fallen Frost stacks. You start the fight with 3 of these stacks, and they can be replenished in a few different ways. Her EX special and follow-up each grant 1 stack of Fallen Frost. Additionally, Disorder triggers from any party member will also grant 2 charges of Fallen Frost. Her ult also restores a full 3 stacks. Not only does Miyabi have her own anomaly, but she can also boost her allies' anomaly build-up rate for a short time, allowing them to trigger Disorder faster, and funnel Fallen Frost stacks back to Miyabi. One other thing to note with Miyabi is that after she triggers a Frost burn, she will have a 10-second window where she can't apply any anomaly. Once you proc Disorder, this effect is removed. This makes anomaly characters a really strong pairing for Miyabi. This update also introduces individual decibel charging, allowing each character on your team to use their ultimate. This makes Yanagi really valuable for Miyabi, since her EX and ult both trigger Polarity Disorder, in addition to building Electric Anomaly, which can trigger a Natural Disorder. Other anomaly units will also be viable team options for Miyabi. However, since her synergy passive is activated by another support character or a Section 6 teammate, your team building may be a little bit more difficult. Her synergy passive is what provides her with Fallen Frost stacks from Disorder, so it's one of the higher priority passives to activate. Moving on to her build, it seems as if her W engine will probably be a high priority for most players, since it offers a huge crit rate and crit damage boost that other anomaly W engines can't offer. It's a very similar situation to Acheron from Honkai Star Rail. Miyabi is the first crit scaling anomaly character, and we currently don't have the free to play or 4-star options that really make her shine. You could either make do with one of the anomaly engines we have and forego any additional crit stats, or run an attack W engine that provides the crit stats that Miyabi really wants, at the cost of the additional passive. Miyabi's signature will be her best in slot by a lot, but for alternatives, I would use Steel Cushion if you have it. Otherwise, Weeping Gemini, Rainforest Gourmet, Roaring Ride, Electro Lip Gloss, Cannon Rotor, or even the new event weapon are decent options. For Miyabi specifically, I would probably prioritize her signature W engine over a limited S rank support or anomaly character, with the one exception being Yanagi, but I'll get into that a bit more in the team section. For Miyabi's skills, you're going to want to focus on basic attack, EX special, and ultimate. Her core passive is pretty important too, since it increases her anomaly damage. As for her dodge and assist, you can level these up as necessary. For discs, Miyabi wants a new 4-set, Branch and Blade Song. It gives an insane amount of crit rate and crit damage, provided that you have over 115 anomaly mastery. For Miyabi, she'll be able to hit this without an anomaly mastery disc 6. For your 2-set, I would personally run Woodpecker Electro for the crit rate, but you could always opt for Hormone Punk, Polar Metal, or our other new set Astral Voice. As for main stats, you want to run crit rate or crit damage in slot 4. Slot 5 is generally ice damage or attack percent, depending on your team composition. If you have someone like Lighter who gives a lot of ice damage, you'll probably want attack percent. For most other teams, you'll want ice damage. If you are using Rena, Pen Ratio is a good option. For slot 6, you're going to want attack percent over anomaly mastery. The main reason for that is because attack percent applies to both your anomaly damage as well as your regular damage, whereas anomaly mastery just boosts your anomaly application rate. In addition to this, you don't need anomaly mastery disc 6 to hit Branch and Blade Song's anomaly mastery requirement, so there's no need for the additional anomaly mastery. If you're worried about your anomaly application being too slow, remember Miyabi does get a crit rate to anomaly build-up rate conversion, which should more than cover your anomaly build-up requirements. For substats, you want to prioritize crit rate and crit damage, followed by attack percent, and then anomaly proficiency. Again, since anomaly proficiency doesn't apply to your regular damage, which is where the majority of Miyabi's damage comes from, this will be a lower priority than crit rate, crit damage, or attack percent. At the time of recording, I'm getting conflicting information about Miyabi cinemas, so I'll make a separate video covering Miyabi's vertical investment when it gets confirmed. It'll be linked in the top right once I release it. Moving on to her teams, Miyabi looks like she's going to have the most options out of any character in the game. Her synergy passive is triggered by either a Section 6 character or a support, and centers around her teammates triggering Disorder to funnel Fallen Frost stacks back to her. This puts Yanagi at the top of her potential teammate list. Not only does Yanagi bring insane burst damage with her EX and ult, but the Polarity Disorder that they trigger, as well as the Natural Disorder from her Electric Anomaly build-up, will both provide Miyabi with Fallen Frost charges. As for her third slot, it's pretty flexible, and can depend on your playstyle, comfort, or just general preference. Surprise surprise, Caesar is one of my top choices here. With her universal attack buffing and low field time, she slots into this team pretty comfortably. Her buff isn't reliant on stunning, but she can still provide some daze build-up, although not quite as much as other options. Her shield will be useful if you struggle to charge Miyabi's basic in aggressive fights, but outside of that, Miyabi and Yanagi have a lot of iframes and inherent safety in their kits, so I don't see Caesar as a necessary pick, especially if you need her for your second team. Lycan is probably on par with Caesar, bringing more daze and buffing burst damage with his stun damage multiplier, as well as his Ice Red Shred to boost Miyabi's damage. If you want more comfortable stunning and don't need Caesar's safety, Lycan is a great option. On the topic of Ice, Sukaku is another good option, but you will sacrifice daze build-up to make this Section 6 team work. Her buffing isn't conditional on stun, and her anomaly build-up is better, but with her high field time and clunkier playstyle, I would personally pick most of the options over her. However, if you do enjoy playing her, she's definitely a great choice. Other supports include Nicole or Rina. Nicole's C6 15% crit rate buff is great for Miyabi, as well as her insane anomaly application triggering additional disorders. This is in addition to her 40% defense shred, damage percent buffing with the W engine, as well as her insane grouping. Of course, buff uptime may be an issue, but building as much energy regen as possible, as well as the upcoming ult and decibel changes, should make this team pretty solid. Yanagi won't be able to make full use of Nicole's crit rate buff and has a little anti-synergy due to her own pen ratio buff being devalued by Nicole's defense shred, but this is probably the closest to a triple anomaly team that you could find. Rina on the other hand provides a bit more value to Yanagi than Miyabi, extending Yanagi's shock anomaly by 3 seconds. Since this is the majority of Yanagi's damage in this team, you can expect a 25% final damage increase on top of Rina's pen ratio buff. Of course, Miyabi can take advantage of Rina's pen ratio buff, however having to change your 2-set may be enough of a loss in crit stats that it isn't worthwhile. As usual, C1 Rina will be more competitive. Lucy is a viable option if she's all you have. Her universal attack buffing can be used by both anomaly characters, but her overall buffing comes a little short compared to the other options so far. Now if you don't have Yanagi, you probably will want to use another anomaly character. While they won't be as efficient as Yanagi, we do have some decent options who will give some Fallen Frost stacks and be able to reset Miyabi's anomaly. Bernice is probably your best option, and you can pair her with Sukaku, Nicole, or Lucy. Nicole does make crit Nice somewhat viable, but I would still typically stick to an anomaly build for her. You may need to run energy regen slot 6 on Bernice, even with her signature W engine, since you will need to trigger a disorder after Miyabi triggers Frostburn in order to maintain maximum DPS. Anomaly Mastery Disc 6 should also be viable for Bernice in this team, but I would highly recommend one or the other, since you ideally want Bernice to apply her burn quickly and often. Grace is a reasonable option considering her fast anomaly application, however you will be stuck running Rina as your support if you want to keep Grace's passive active. Sukaku and Nicole would probably be better options despite losing out on Grace's synergy passive. Again, you may want to run Energy Regen Disc 6 on Grace for maximum efficiency, but Anomaly Mastery should be fine too, since her anomaly application isn't as reliant on energy as Bernice. Piper is the worst and slowest option of the anomaly characters, since Jane isn't even a consideration because she would be competing with Miyabi for field time. Piper's passive provides 18% damage to the team, so if you want it active you will be stuck bringing Lucy. Similarly to Grace, you are still likely to see a better team performance with Sukaku or Nicole, they just provide Miyabi with much more buffs than Rina or Lucy can offer. Finally, we have 2 team options that might not be as reliable at proccing Disorder, but should still see relatively good performance. Lycan and Sukaku both provide considerable buffs to Miyabi and should be able to trigger enough ice anomalies to give Miyabi some stacks and refresh her anomaly to some level. Glider and Lucy are probably a little better at it and also take up less field time. If your Lucy is C6 and doesn't have energy issues, you may be able to run Anomaly Mastery on her slot 6 for more consistent burns. Both of these team options will have more consistent stunning and are probably more reliant on playing around stun windows, but will overall be a little weaker than Miyabi's best teams. So to summarize, Miyabi's best teammate is going to be Yanagi, with the third slot being fairly flexible. However, if you don't have Yanagi, there are a lot of alternative options. with no one option being significantly stronger or worse than the others. But again, Yanagi is just such a good character for Miyabi that you're always going to see your best performance with her. And that's Miyabi. She has a lot of options because of the way she plays and what her passive offers. Long term, she's really looking for a support who can buff both her and Yanagi's damage while also providing stun. So if you're invested in Miyabi for the long term, be on the lookout for that. Of course, I'll be making videos on every new character that comes out, so subscribe if you want to see more. Leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and comment below which team you want to run Miyabi in. Anyway, I'll see you later.